a shower, a moment to myself, working 24 hours.
When Kevin was young, he used to have really horrific tantrums. And when I say horrific, I really mean horrific. When he was 2 or 3, I would pick him up from daycare. Actually, even when he was older, when he was 5, he was still doing it. We'd pick him up from daycare, and every time he'd see us, he'd freak out. Like, really freak out. I mean, he'd be on the floor, screaming, crying, biting, kicking. I'd have to pick him up without shoes, because shoes were just too much to think about. Carry him to the car, deposit him in the car, of course in his car seat or booster seat, take him home and put him in his room and shut the door. And then I'd cry every day.
The thing I had was being able to change my tampon or my pad in peace, you know? And I'd always have to have my husband run interference for me. You know, I'd be like, okay, I'm on my period. You need to keep them away so I could do this by myself, you know? And I remember being in the bathroom and opening up the wrapper for my tampon and my son screaming, "Mommy, I know you have candy in there. You're hiding candy. That's why you don't want me in there." And my head was just exploding. I'm just, if there's anything you need to be able to do by yourself, it's to change your tampon, you know? And I couldn't even do that in peace. And this went on for years. And every month I would dread it because I would just want privacy for this one thing. But for some reason, the minute I would go to the bathroom, they were at the door. "Mommy, I need this. Mommy, I want this. Mommy, what are you doing?" And then I'm not exactly the nicest person on my period. So, you know, you'd want to just snap and lose your mind. Like, for God's sake, I'm changing my tampon. Go away. That for me, without doubt, was the most frustrating part of their toddler times.
There was a time when I had my first 3 kids, I had them inside of 3 years. So it was really close together, and my eldest actually had a few developmental things happening, so he was functioning more at an 18-month level. So I had a newborn and 2 1.5-year-olds, essentially. And I think back about that time and how hard it was. I remember trying to breastfeed the newborn, and every 2 minutes I'd be taking her off because I had to tend to one of the other ones. And I think in the end, I actually only really ended up having milk in my left breast because I never put the baby on the right side because I was always using my right hand to feed toddlers or do a drawing with them. But I was always busy. I was always feeding and doing something else at the same time. There are also some sort of scary things that happened. I remember once I was at the park with them, and I had a triple stroller, and my son wanted to run, so I let him out, and I let him run, and I called for him, and he didn't stop, and he just kept running and running and running. And eventually I just had to ditch the girls, the baby girls, and run after him. And I caught him, and the whole way back I was thinking, I hope those baby girls are still in there in that double stroller. So it was, I had a lot on my plate. It was really busy.
Last year when we were in Berlin, and my daughter was 3 at the time, and everywhere we went it was always Mama Kara, asking me to pick her up and to carry her everywhere that we were going. And it just seemed like it never ended. And she was, 3 years old, perfectly capable of walking. There were no, physical issues keeping her from being able to do it, but she just always wanted me to pick her up. And she would not let go, over and over and over again. Mama Kara, Mama Kara, Mama Kara.
When my daughter was a toddler, we could not get her to eat anything other than sour cream, butter, and noodles. Maybe a banana. We called it the white diet. She refused to eat anything other than things that were white. I don't know if it was the color, I don't know what it was, but it was a total nightmare. She wouldn't have fruit, she wouldn't have chicken, she wouldn't have vegetables. And it became this amazing, epic struggle between she and her father and I to try to get her to eat anything that would make her healthy. We actually were stunned that she could even walk upright because she wasn't getting any nutrition hardly at all. And it was very upsetting. It's hard when you feel the pressure to be a good mom and make sure your children sleep right and eat well and all those things. So it really sucked.
My older daughter Laurel is now 7, and when she was a toddler, she actually was remarkably free of a lot of the typical toddler things. Tantrums, she didn't really have them. She didn't really experience terrible twos. She ate food. But the one issue that we struggled with that started kind of on the early end of toddlerhood and persisted for a long time was separation anxiety and issues. We started Laurel at a daycare just before she turned 1, and with every year transition into a different room and persisting all the way into elementary school, our transitions were always really, really hard. Like heart-wrenchingly hard, nails dug into the arms, screaming, crying. I mean, it broke our hearts. Some days it felt like it was breaking my husband and my collective spirit. It was just really, really difficult. And, when we were in it, it just felt like it was never going to end, and it was just always going to be there and was so difficult.
The hardest part of toddlerhood for me was the learning. And not the basic learning, like don't eat yellow snow or look 2 ways before you cross the road. I mean the big learning, like shoelaces and buttons and, oh, God forbid, potty training. I did potty training 4 times. And every time, every day, it made me want to chew glass. Preferably glass in the shape of a bottle that had wine in it, but glass nonetheless.
Ah, yes. The toddler years. Or as I like to call them, the forgotten years. Because I don't really remember them. 2 toddlers, 21 months apart, not sleeping. Yeah, I was exhausted. Totally exhausted. It really is a complete fog. I don't really remember much, except that my one daughter never slept, and my other daughter was a biter, and she would bite me, her dad, her sister, her brother, her grandparents. She even bit the dog once, which was a little weird. So, yeah, it was trying, to say the least. And I probably did some things I'm not so proud of, like raised my voice a little too much, said things I probably regret. It's not easy. And they're not easy when they're like that.
When they were toddlers, they had this amazing ability to be incredibly, incredibly stubborn. So when I was trying to help them with their zippers or lace up their boots or put on their shoes, it was always, no, mommy, no, don't help me. And I didn't mind that most of the time because I wanted to foster some degree of independence. I wanted them to learn how to do these things on their own. But, as you know, you don't always have the time to stand around and watch them struggle to put their shoes on the wrong feet. So whenever I tried to help them with it, there would be a total meltdown. There would be tears. Sometimes those tears would be mine. This also happened at the park. We'd be at the park having a great time, and the girls wouldn't want to go home. They were stubborn. They just wanted to stay and have fun, and I get that. But sometimes it's time to get home and time to fix dinner and all of those things.
But eventually, he outgrew it. And eventually, I learned how to cope with it. And he grew into this amazing, almost 16-year-old. He turned 16 in a month. And I can't imagine having a better son. He's the kid who will give me a hug spontaneously after dinner when I've made something that he loves. He's the kid who will help the neighbors. And I thought it was me. But the other day, we were in the grocery store. Can't believe I'm getting teary. We were in the grocery store, and there was a woman with a little kid, and the kid was on the ground freaking out. And This poor woman looked like she wanted to cry. And the cashier was being really judgmental. And she looked at the little kid and she looked at Kevin and she said, "Oh, I bet you were never like that." Kevin and I both laughed because we both know the truth. And he just looked at her and smiled and said, "No, actually, I was a lot worse."
Yeah, well, they're older and they're more conscious of their body. You know, they see bathroom time as private time. Doesn't stop them from coming down the stairs buck naked like the day they were born. That I have not been able to break them of. But they have come to the understanding that when someone is in the bathroom, you are to leave them alone until they are done their business. So, you know, that is much relief and not nearly as frustrating for me anymore.
But now those three kids are 8, 10, and 11. And I think about how life is with them now, and they're just so much fun, and they have so much fun together. So although it was busy for me at the time, now they have playmates, and they go off to the neighborhood with their bikes and their rollerblades. They disappear for hours having fun together. And they're super helpful with their younger brothers and sisters, and they're just great to even just have a coffee with. We have so much fun. They're good company, great conversationalists.
Now that my kids are older, they're now almost 5 years old and 7 years old. They've become a lot more independent, and I think that with independence, the whining has also lessened quite a bit. They're still very opinionated and have a lot of needs and wants, and they're not shy about expressing those, but the tone of voice that they use most of the time to express them is not that whiny voice that I used to hear all the time. And it just makes it much easier because, I'm happy to have a conversation with my children, to discuss something, to talk about what we can do and what we can't do. And even if they don't agree with me, even if they're angry at me, it's just a lot easier when we're able to carry on a regular conversation about it instead of the whining and the crying.
I tell you that she's now 5 and she eats fine. She eats fruit and vegetables. She has a fruit plate every night. She eats every kind of meat. I mean, the kid eats broccoli, so I'm telling you. It's great. It's fine. It's not even a...
When Laurel hit first grade, all of a sudden it was just as if a switch flipped, and whether she was more comfortable in her body, with her surroundings, just was a bigger kid, she just all of a sudden it wasn't an issue. And that first day and every day since, that she has bounded into school with a smile and a wave, and that's it. It's just been enormously gratifying. We really do not take it for granted.
They did learn to pee and poo, and it does end. There is end. There is light at the end of the proverbial tunnel. Cheers.
I don't know what happened, or can't say I did something in particular, but just slowly the fog started to lift. My life started to come back again, and started to sleep for 8 solid hours at a time. And it just got better. It really did. And it's not easy being a mom to toddlers, because they're just strange creatures. There's just no understanding them. At least it wasn't for me. So now, though, I got these 2 incredible, amazing girls who I connect with, just on such a great level now that I didn't when they were little. It'd be getting all misty. So, it really does get better.
My mom wanted to tried moms to know that it gets better. Soon those screaming, snotty toddlers you deal with every day will grow up and be just as awesome as I am.
lots of time has gone by since those days. And there were some really long days and some equally long nights, but I miss those days because they are actually very short, and I want you guys to know that it does get better.
You're not alone. Things change as your kids get older. You learn just like they do, and it gets better. If you're in a rough spot right now, don't lose heart. Don't think you're the only one. Don't think you're a bad parent, because we've all been there.
I would just say that eventually they will become more independent, and they won't need you every second of the day. And I know how overwhelming it is, because you just want to breathe, and bedtime becomes the most glorious time of the day. You almost want to do a happy dance when they go to bed, because you can just be yourself. The time that they will need you and be dependent on you will lessen as they age, and the little things that irritate you today will turn into funny stories, that you can tell them about as they age. And this is what you used to do to me, and they'll laugh, and it'll become a family memory. As much as it is frustrating today, all these little things end up becoming family memories where you will share laughs over.
So if you're a mom who's busy with a bunch of little kids, babies, toddlers, I just want you to know it does get better.
Get to a point in time when, even when things are frustrating, that you can take a break and you can say, look, do something by yourself for a while, and I'm gonna go and do this other thing, and we'll reconnect afterwards. There's at least those little pauses in between, and it doesn't go straight from no sleep all night to whining all day to refusing to eat food to throwing toys around the room. There's actual breaks between the challenges and time to breathe. So something to look forward to, and you'll definitely survive. I know you will.
If you're frustrated because there's some struggle you're going through, whether it's with food, like I said, or sleeping or biting or whatever it is, it will pass, I promise you. And I know you don't believe me, but in a couple of years I'll be able to say, I told you so. So hang in there. You'll be fine, I promise.
So my advice would be that, when you're in difficult toddler situations, they feel like they're going to last forever. You may feel brokenhearted, broken-spirited, ready to give up. But I would just say, hang in there, breathe. Remember, it is a phase. It might be a long one or a recurring one, but it does get better. And this experience with Laurel has served as a really good reminder for us that kids are so different developmentally, and sometimes you just have to kind of wait for them to find their natural rhythm in the world. So hang in there, and it will get better.
So if you're out there and you're feeling a little frustrated, just know that it's not going to last much longer. It really won't. Take a deep breath. You'll be fine.